minister at the home of his tribe. They had come also because of prophecy. Far in the past, the spokesman of Israel's God had foretold that the Saviour and King of the Jews would spring from the stem of Jesse. This child of the house of David would free the tribes of Israel from the tyranny of generations of conquerors and bring a new age to the world. The child would be born in David's city. Isaiah had foretold it, and Micah. Now the day had come. Mary, who conversed with angels, bore in her body the Saviour, and her time was near. Thus she rode with Joseph to Bethlehem. As the late light slanted across the hills and set the west ablaze, the couple climbed the last slope into the town, which waited unaware. On its roofs, men sat cross-legged, talking idly in the twilight. The narrow, crowded asked that he pluck her cherries to eat. Angered, filled with suspicion and reproach, he refused. Let the father of the baby gather cherries, and Joseph said, and at once a voice sang a command in the air. A cherry tree bent its branches so that the fruit fell into her hand. Mary was the rose of the world, said the people, and the child was the very sun of righteousness. So mother and son brought light. To the darkness and to the hope of life, to replace the fear of death. Yet the pattern for them, as well as for the rest of the world, was already set. For every people there lived a ritual that offered hope for despair and the prospect of life in place of death. Those rituals were seasonal. They marked the period of the winter solstice. The word solstice means only sun stands still. The winter solstice is the point in the yearly course of the earth around the sun when, because of the angle of the earth's axis, the northern hemisphere is tilted farthest away from the sun's face. The path that the sun takes across the sky as it travels from horizon to horizon is low. What weak rays reach the earth during that season fall obliquely, offering little light and little warmth. The day of the winter solstice is the shortest of the entire year, and the night the cruelest and the longest. Most people knew the sun as a god, the provider of light and warmth and life. In late December, the god offered only a brief daily showing, the forced smile of an invalid ancient on his deathbed. Yet in the days that followed, the god fought back against the encroaching darkness, slowly winning through to the midsummer months, when the sun's golden brightness blazed high in the heavens. People did not take the sun's victory for granted. Men and women then felt themselves and their actions intrinsic to the universe. They had a role to play. They believed that sun and light were truly endangered at the solstice. The earth trembled under the footsteps of the dead. And unless the living offered prayers and performed ceremonies, death would triumph. There would be no return of summer, no blossoming again of fruits and flowers, no rippling of grain in the fields, no gambling of infant animals in the pastures. Far from Bethlehem, far from the ordered rule of the Roman Empire, in the night-black icy north, the lands of Celt, Geat, Lap, Finn, Dane, and Hun, rituals to ensure the rebirth of the sun were faithfully enacted in massive timbered halls and around fires blazing amid the endless tracts of snow. People masked with horses' heads, with stags' antlers, with deer skins, with the hides of goats, danced in the firelight. They adorned their houses and themselves with holly and ivy and mistletoe and evergreen, all of the plants that withstood the death of winter and so were charged with enchanting power. They held heroic carousels. They sacrificed to the dead and to the gods of darkness. For the sake of the sun and the earth's fertility, animals died, and sometimes men and women. The threat was not merely the loss of life-giving light, although that was bad enough. The dark these peoples were certain was crowded with the creatures of evil. Ghosts haunted the gloom, werewolves prowled, witches, demons, goblins, and imps lurked in the nocturne, creating mischief. Packs of supernatural dogs massed on the moorland was the brother of the sun, calling out to the heavens. Great bonfires blazed on the hills of Ireland and Scotland, on the mountains of France and Germany, and in the halls of the Norse kings. Throughout the countries lapped by the Mediterranean and ruled by Rome, fire burned in the form of candles as the Romans held their winter feast. Originally this feast was called Brumalia. Later it became known as the Saturnalia. The festivities were dedicated to the Titan Saturn, lord of the harvest, long trapped by his son Jupiter beneath the earth, perhaps because the imprisoned Titans were deemed fit to view the world upside down. The Saturnalia was a feast of reversals. Masters served slaves, and slaves commanded masters. This was a time of banqueting, of carrying green boughs that signified the strength of life, of bestowing presents. Men and women faced the darkness with a kind of madcap glee, fending it off with their high spirits. The dates and natures of winter ceremonies and celebrations varied from race to race. Among some peoples, early November was the time for the most concentrated rituals. This was so with the Celts, whose winter began at Samhain, November the 1st. Norsemen originally celebrated Yule, their winter rite, in November when darkness began to enfold their land. Other festivals were spread throughout the following 2 months. The Roman Saturnalia occupied the week that ended on the 24th of December. The followers of the Persian god Mithra, the cave-born god of light who drove away the dark, deemed that his birthday was December the 25th, and many other days in December were the occasions for winter ceremonies. Yet all of these were intimately concerned with the great natural crisis that reached its acme on the day of the sun's shortest and feeblest appearance. All of these rites were gathered at last under the mantle of the Christian celebration, and while the origins were forgotten, traces of the old ceremonies remained. These traces were to be found in the devotion to the flames of candles and to the blazing of Yule logs, in mimes and mumming and curious rituals, and games that echoed ancient and forgotten sacrifices, in feasting and the choice of foods to feast upon, in garlands of holly and ivy and evergreen, in the raising of Christmas trees, in the giving of presents, in the very words of the songs that were sung. The child who was the Son of God and called the Son of Righteousness promised a